I've been really concerned about the digital use and the digital addiction. My friends who have kids are describing addictive behaviors for very young children. They're like brain chemistry addiction. And it moves beyond just being a product in a consumer society to being potentially like a prey, like literally preying on us.
I want to say 99%. It's very rare if I find a kid that has some kind of idea of what they love or passionate about, because they've never talked about it. They didn't know they could have anything. Like, what lights you up? There's no limits in life. If you want something and you really focus, and I teach them all that, you can have anything. You're so powerful. We have been taught and indoctrinated to believe that we're so limited and we can't be and do anything in this life. But it's like, wake up, we can. You can have anything. There's no limits.
Hi, welcome to the Blue Morpho Podcast. I'm Hamilton Souther, your host, and today we have Ashley Gonor with us. And this is an exciting conversation for me because Ashley interviewed me on her podcast, and it was a really incredible conversation, and I was honored to be on your podcast, Ashley. So thank you so much for being here with us today, and please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Hamilton. You know, when I had you on my podcast and I had done my Hamilton deep dive, you know, you really, even asking me to be on your podcast, I felt such a connection to you. So even just being here, I feel like you've been my friend for years. There's this just common, this feeling that you give me. But about myself, I do have a podcast, Uncover Your Magic. I started that 3 years ago. I've been married for 18 years and have 2 children. And, in my life, I grew up kind of, my mom and dad were married twice. I didn't have the most stable childhood, but I figured it out. And I think that's part of what gives me my motivation in life and my independence. But I didn't have children until I was 37 and 40. And before I met Richard, when I was 35, I did a ton of personal development. I was just always reading books and, Wayne Dyer and, Course in Miracles and everything that I could find. I was always a seeker. And when I reached about 30, when I was like 27, I got married for a year, and I knew that it was wrong. And it was because everyone else was getting married and having kids, and I felt like I was behind. And I knew that day it was wrong. And a year later, I left. And I remember feeling that feeling of like, I'm free. And that moment, I saw myself knowing that I could be, do, or have anything. And I had this like light bulb go off. So I found myself back to San Diego, found a company that hired me, and they sent us to a seminar. And it was like a weekend. And I went to the seminar, and it just opened my eyes. And I thought, this is how life can be. I couldn't believe it. So I went all through all the seminars, quit my job, did nothing, knew that I'd had more to offer than just sitting behind this cubicle, and opened a day spa with nothing, bought a house with nothing, bought 2 houses with nothing. And that was when you could buy houses with no money down. But I just trusted and surrendered. And I knew that it was just that voice inside that just said, keep going and keep saying yes. And my spa caught on fire. And it would be like 3 months into opening this day spa. And I remember people coming to me and saying, don't quit. And I thought, I'm not quitting. Like, that wouldn't even enter my mind. I just knew, here I am 30 years old, and I'm going to do something for myself. And so I bought these houses, sold them, made money. And during the time when I had this day spa, I grew it for 5 years from zero. I went to a Hallmark store, and I bought a birthday card. I'm giving you kind of the sum up to get to me where I am now. So I'm just, bear with me. So I bought this Hallmark card, and for my friend, it was her birthday. And I looked down and I saw another one that said soulmate. And I thought, gosh, I just, I'm 30 years old. I want to have a family one day. I would love to meet my soulmate. So I read the card and it just resonated with me. So I bought the card and I would keep it in my pantry. I moved a few times. I would read it in the morning with my coffee and I would just picture myself feeling this way with someone. So long story short, I'm about 3.5 years into this day spa. I've never left the front desk. It was my baby, basically. And I ended up, through one of my clients, signing up for It's Just Lunch. It's a dating service. I didn't really, it was kind of like I was, okay, I'll try it. Well, long story short, Richard is my second date. Meet him. Great. He asked me to go to Hawaii. I was like, oh, finally, it's like I meet somebody that's going to ask me to go on a trip. And we get ready to go to the airport the day before, and he brings me a present. And it's a photo album and a card. And the card was that one card in my pantry. And I opened it and I went, oh my gosh, I know the words. I've read this for like 3 years. And he had this card. So my point of me giving you this background is, I've gone through my life, either struggling, but knowing that there's more, finding there's more, going for like just trusting and surrendering and not even using the word fear in my whole, I would never use that. I still don't. And just saying yes all the time and knowing that, it's always going to be provided for. I would, and then with Richard and this card and that magic moment was, okay, he's my, it's my soulmate. And so, that I finally told him. I didn't tell him that day because I didn't want to take the magic out of that moment. But, yeah, it's been 18 years, 2 children. I've enjoyed being a mom. And then, right now I'm enjoying having my podcast, and I created a class for teenagers because, I've trained my girls for their entire life with all the books I've read, the personal development classes that I took, because I knew when I had kids that I would be very intentional parenting. So once COVID hit and I started this podcast with no question of what I was doing, people were listening to my podcast asking me to help their kids because their kids were struggling at home. And I was wondering, like, why are they asking me to help their kids? So all of a sudden, I have a line of people that I've been helping, and I create a class. So that's 3 years into it. I have a class called Raising Confidence for teenagers. And then the parents wanted to take it as well. So I created a parent version. And I'm kind of in the middle of that right now and enjoying my kids' teenage years and watching them flourish because I've put the mindset tools inside of them as they have grown, and watching their teenage years flourish and having the confidence, to know that when Paige goes to college in 2 years, that she's ready. So that's kind of my background, Hamilton.
Oh, that's amazing. What got you involved in the books and the mindset training and stuff like that in the first place? Wayne Dyer, et cetera, Course in Miracles. How did that first come about into your space and into your life?
Well, I remember my dad had some Wayne Dyer books on the bookshelf, and I would read that, but I think it was just in my soul when I look back at who I am. Like if I look at my sisters and me, raised with the same family, we all have our different stories. I was definitely the seeker of the 3 of us. And I just think it was in me to always, I know there was more. And I thought this is all life is. Like, we're just going to, get married and have a family and go get a job. There's got to be more to this. And I have friends that reach out to me now and would say, I remember I was getting ready to run that marathon and you would send me all these affirmations. And I was like, I did. But I think it was I'm like a teacher. I always love to help people. And I think I would love bookstores. I just love learning. I think if you're not growing, you're dying, right?
Yeah. Early on, what were like the early teachings that really stood out for you? What like most impacted you?
Oh gosh, Abraham Hicks was always one that I was drawn to. She, I live in San Diego and she has a house here, so she would have a lot of seminars down here. I would go to those a lot. Like I said, Wayne Dyer was always one. I studied the Course in Miracles. My mom's side of the family was a Christian Scientist. They were Christian Science. And that's part of my blood, I think. We didn't really study that when I was growing up, but my mom always talked about mind over matter. And, she was raised with no doctors and no vaccines. And, I just feel like maybe, that's part of my DNA, that I have that inside of me. But yeah, I think, I just think you're either a seeker or something has to change in your life. You have to have like a, coming to Jesus moment to where you're like, I need to figure this out. But I think it's just for me, I didn't have that. I did when I came back to San Diego and went to that seminar where that really opened my eyes. But just before that, I was open to that. It was like, oh, it was resonating with me. When you just know that it's speaking to you, it all resonated with me.
Yeah. What was that first seminar? What was the content of it?
It was PSI, similar to Landmark. Have you heard of Landmark?
Yeah, I have.
People usually hear of Landmark over the PSI, but it was all of, law of attraction. All the things that I just mentioned to you was all that into one. It was amazing. You went up to San Francisco and did the high ropes and the climb the walls, like all the things, getting over your fear, seeing yourself mirror, the mirror of you within someone else, like watching how you act. It just really, it also like made you realize, and that's probably when I realized the fear that people live with and have been programmed their whole life. And it's this constant, this block that people keep their blinders on and don't take the blinders off and live their life in this like love and knowing and the acceptance of everything is perfect and everything is happening for me. And when you live like that and you're free of the fear, then it's just like one magical moment after the other. I really believe that. And that's how I've taught my girls. And I watch them now. You see, you're doing as a mom, like I do all this training or parenting, and now they're teenagers. And I'm like, oh, the fruit of my labor, it's all coming together because now they're becoming independent and now they're living through those little principles that we've talked about their whole life. I see it and it's so beautiful. Nothing could make me happier than watching them get it.
That's amazing. Did you start from, very young, from in utero to using this mindset and helping them learn in this way? At what age did it start?
Oh, right away. Like I remember they were little and I would read. We did meditation. There was this thing on Alexa that I would say, they did a 3-minute meditation every night before bed. We did that. We did our I am statements and we made little cards. We had gratitude journals since they were in preschool when they couldn't even write. We would draw like stick figures, like I'm grateful for my mom. But it's taking these kids, especially these days, that don't even know what gratitude is. They only are in this world of it's instant gratification. Like with the technology, it's just like, it's just so quick. And when you don't have them appreciate and look what you have and look around and, our morning routine has been, we've had that morning routine since they could walk and talk and we haven't missed a day. And I'm not kidding you. And they're 17 and 14 now. We haven't missed a day of our morning routine. So yeah, I used to read them in bed, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, because I knew when I was probably like late 20s when that came out. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, every kid should know these four. I wish I knew these 4 agreements. It's just they're 4 simple things, but wow, they're so powerful if those kids could get to know those. So we did that. Yeah, the gratitude journal. I have a whole library of gratitude journals from that they'll take when they move out, hopefully, so they can remember. Mom, we used to go buy our gratitude journals and write in them every day. But I see it. I see the difference. They had to give compliments every day. The minute they walked out, I took them out of their car seat and I said, "You go find 5 people right now and give them compliments." And they'd come home and go, no one says anything back, Mom. I said, that's not why you're giving a compliment. So now we go out, like we're at the grocery store, at Target, or you can't even walk down the aisle without them saying, "Oh, I love your earrings. Oh, it's like, it's a constant, but it's a muscle, it's
Yeah.
very authentic. It's super sincere. It's just natural because that's how they were raised.
Yeah, it's creating the neural network that allows them to even think that way and feel comfortable enough to express themselves in that way. And what an amazing way to think about being raised, because like you said, so many of us are programmed in fear. And
Right.
that's literally the exact opposite. So that's seeing that there's this impediment and tremendous barrier to seeing somebody and complimenting their earrings. You could never do that. You could
Oh,
never
right.
encroach upon them. Like it's like the exact opposite concept, and so empowering to learn those skills early. I mean, that's something that I think the affirmation work is helping people who didn't get that training to ultimately build.
Right.
That the repetitive mantras in the affirmation work is trying to create that in the mind after we've been indoctrinated in literally the opposite system of that. But
Right.
I was always shocked really by why this wasn't part of our
Oh,
childhood
believe
training.
me.
Like
Right.
this should have been part of like in preschool, in
I
kindergarten,
know.
in elementary school. It would have made so much sense to have these teachings. And when I read the Four Agreements, I was in my early 20s. And my first takeaway from it was, why is this not practiced by everybody?
Right.
Like this should have been global education, the Four Agreements. And
Oh,
it
totally.
made sense to me why, the world is in the current states that it is without having those principles instilled in us. How have your children embraced it throughout the years, for all the moms out there and people with young kids? How has it been raising them in this way?
Oh gosh. You know, it's so sweet. So we just had Mother's Day, and they write the cards, and they both wrote, "You're my best friend." And that was all I needed. That's all you needed to write. But when you watch their choices because they know their values, I've some of my clients that have never been, don't even know their values. And that's not a common thing to teach a child growing up. That parents don't know that. They don't know to teach values. But when you teach, in my class, I teach, to figure out what are your 5 values, your core values. And why that is because it's like your internal GPS system, right? Like when you're growing up and, honesty is important. Of course, I'm not going to lie. Family is super important. My family comes before anybody, or, friends, the different faith. But when you realize your values are what drive your choices, when you're a teenager, and what I see now, answering your question, watching my girls, I mean, they know that it's an absolute no or an absolute yes. They're not wavering. They don't have to go to a party to experience anything because they know they don't belong there and that's not their values. So it doesn't even they're not even tempted because we've had this training, for their whole life. It's just so amazing. And it's the confidence too in the knowing, even if no one else is on that page, they don't care. They know that they're so rooted in their values. And, it's like when I say they have to give compliments, I'm not a good mom with the technology or the phone thing. They have an hour limit, and it's just watching these kids just become addicted to this technology. And for myself, raising Paige for 17 years, I didn't have an iPhone then. It was like I had a flip phone. So really all of technology, there was no Facebook or Instagram, when she was born. So I only know technology as much as she's really known it, So we don't know the ramifications or, anything that's going to come from all of that, this addiction for these kids. But the parents have used it as a babysitter, or, and I just watch these kids get so, with the blinders, they don't see the beauty of the nature. We're not going in nature. I mean, we're talking about the trees, we're touching the trees, we're grounding. We talk about the hummingbirds and the rainbow. I mean, it's constant in our family and in my classes, but to teach these kids to look out and look at the nature. I mean, that should be a class at school. Like I could tell you a whole curriculum that would benefit the kids way more than learning what they're learning now.
Yeah, I've been really concerned about the digital use and the digital addiction. My friends who have kids are describing addictive behaviors for very young children.
Mm-hmm.
And even like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old are
Right.
describing real addictive behavior, like brain chemistry addiction. And I started to look at it to try to study it and understand where it was coming from. And I put together that there's a profit motive behind holding somebody's attention. And so the studies that were done on how to keep somebody's attention there longer and longer, and then with the inclusion of machine learning to really like try to perfect that model, is actually going from the phone to the eyes and the eyes to the brain and then the brain to the brain chemistry. And it's going right to the dopamine receptors. And the kids are starting to now, show signs of being dopamine addicts.
Right.
And that's very, very similar to being like a cocaine addict.
Right. Oh, I know.
And yeah, this is unbelievably alarming to me. And something of great question. You say we don't know yet what the ramifications ultimately are going to be for this. And it's only brought it even more to my attention with the proliferation in the last months of artificial intelligence, how that just ramps that up even higher. What have you seen as a parent during this age? Like, you didn't have it before you were a parent. Now you're a parent. What's been this arc and seeing this of, everybody that you've been involved with and the adoption of technology?
Yeah. It's so being an observer of watching. I'm not a judgy mom. I just observe, and I see with the girls, they didn't have phones until they had to have them at school for their whatever they have, their little apps that they have. So probably 7th grade, and there's no Instagram and all that, but there is now, and there is the Snapchat, which is another, terrible subject for me. But I understand that in order to talk to friends, they have to have these things. Like, or mom, I'm not going to be social. I'm not going to have a friend because that's the only way we communicate. But it's like this trap. They figured out how to get them so trapped, because now it's like they can see where their friends are. That we get to the mall, Hamilton, and Paige will go, "Oh, so and so's here." Like, oh my gosh! But it's like watching. It's just an addiction. And I was just on the East Coast I was a chaperone for the 8th grade class for Presley's class a couple weeks ago, and they couldn't have their phones. They can only have them for an hour when we got home at night to call their moms. And I watched the first couple days. It was like watching a drug addict. Didn't know what to do. Asked a million questions on when do we get our phone. Wanted to make sure when it was coming, and that tapered. By day 3, they were playing games. They were talking. They were having fun on the bus. It was like I kept saying, "Look, like this is amazing. We can actually have conversations, find games to play." And they finally got to where they didn't care about the phones anymore. But it's such a, every family is so different. The kids that I've been helping, and I'm so grateful that these parents see the need for me to help them, because, I think it's been such a babysitter, and I said that when the kids are 3 and 4 and you see the parents at dinner and they have their kids on these iPads or phones, they can't even sit up to chew their food and have a conversation with their family. That right there is just heartbreaking when I see that. Heartbreaking. So I feel like the whole family dynamic, I see that shifting. Like it's like they come to their house, and I've had many families say we go to our 4 corners. There's not that. With our family, it is like the phones are put away. We're together. We're not, it's very intentional, but I just can see what happens. Like, it's just not, I don't even want to, pretty soon Paige will be 18 and she can make her own choices. But I pray to God that I've given her those values and that direction, that she realizes how important it is to look up, look outside, see the people, look in their eyes, see the magic every day. Because the magic's not on your phone or on your video game.
No, I agree. I agree. I'm shocked. Honestly, I'm shocked at the intensity of the proliferation, and I've become really concerned about the proliferation of machine learning associated with it and artificial intelligence.
Right.
Because one thing was the way I looked at it is like it's one thing in the last 20 years for all of us to have become a product of the tools that we're given. And yeah, we know that in big tech, there's a tremendous amount of money that's made from the data that we generate. But I thought when you bring artificial intelligence to it, you ramp it up to a point that it moves beyond just being a product in a consumer society to being potentially like a prey, like literally preying on us, like literally a predator and prey relationship where it's not only just utilizing it, but studying us to do it better without understanding the ramifications of doing that. Right. So if an algorithm's doing that without knowing the ramifications of doing that on us, and it can change our brain chemistry and it can change our choices and it can change our behaviors, ultimately that moves beyond what we previously considered, to be a barrier of identity or privacy or even allowance to now something acting on us or against us. And it's been a tremendous concern of mine.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have children, and so you don't get firsthand of that, and I think I love when people, I mean, just for you to think, where's this generation, the generations that are coming up, what you do for what your passion is in life down at Blue Morpho, like, what are these kids going to start coming to? Like, my goal is to get these kids thinking I'm going to go to Blue Morpho when I'm a 20-year-old, you know what I mean? Like that's where I want the world. That's my vision of this world. I see education changing. I see retreats for teenagers. I see, all these, but it has to start there. It can't, once, if they get into their 20s, it's like, it's just going to be this hamster wheel, because a lot of those kids haven't been taught to change the direction of their thinking, or the artificial intelligence is going to take over. I mean, we had to make a speech last night, and Paige was helping Presley and with her speech. And I said something, I go, I bet people are going to make these speeches with artificial intelligence. I mean, I don't know much about that, but Paige goes, oh, Mom, it's all the time at school. People do this. Like, they don't even write papers anymore. And I'm thinking, so what's the point? What are we doing? What are we learning?
I think it's changing. I think we're at the cusp of now the change, and that this is the moment. And I've been sounding the alarm bells everywhere I can, saying, guys, we need to wake up to the idea that this is changing so fast. It's already changed. First of all, like the mindset has come to me of the word it's over. Like the way we used to think it is already over.
Yeah.
It's already being disrupted. It's in the process of the change. And if we wait any longer, it's going to be too late to actually be able to influence this in any way, or help it in any way, or support it in any way. Because I think that fundamentally what we're describing is a very early technology. Even in the form of the cell phones, they're still very early technology. They've only been around for a couple decades, not 2,000 years or 5,000 years. They've been around for a couple decades. So this is still very early technology, and we're seeing the ramifications of it. And sometimes it can be so overwhelming and in our space so much, we think that that's how it's going to be forever. But ultimately, it's not. It's constantly evolving, and things could change dramatically with it. But in the case of the world before consumer-based artificial intelligence to the world after it, the after it world just started. It just started a number of months ago. And the speed at which it disrupts is exponential. And it gets better and better at disrupting exponentially. And we've never had a tool in the consumer market that ultimately works like this. And so the way that we did anything that it disrupts is fundamentally over. And one of the places that it's going to hit and impact hardest first is education.
Right. Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's already done that. I mean,
it's happening.
Yeah, it's over. You're right. We're in the new world right now.
We're in the new world. Yeah. And we need to wake up to that new world and decide how we want to treat it. And I don't think we made that decision about, cell phones and apps and stuff. I think the 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 tool that it gave us, the abilities that it gave us were so whelming to everybody and so powerful that we just used them. I mean, it just makes sense. If you think about going from the dial-up phone to the cell, to the cordless phone, to then ultimately, a cell phone, et cetera. It's just a progression. But at
Right.
this point, I think it's a time where we have to stop for a second and say to ourselves, like, where does this actually head? Because the way that we were doing life, the way that we were raising kids, the way kids were going through school has been dramatically disrupted now.
Right.
And it's what now comes next.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's been very, very powerful for me. How do you relate to kids and technology? You've said a couple times that, they get an hour associated with it. I know that that would, in many cases, feel like such punishment to some children that are on it all the time. How do you actually manage that relationship?
Right. Well, it's in our house. It's just been, that's what it's been. That was the deal. And we manage it with our phone. We can do it, time, but because we're all in the same service. So we manage it. But, I want to say, if let's say I had 10 clients and parents, not the kids, like I'm working with the parents, trying to help them with tools and ways to help their children. I would say 10 of them say their kids are on their phones or iPads 5 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that has to stop. You have to go to one. And I'm not kidding. We're not just tapering back. We're going to one. These kids are ruling your life. Like, who's the boss?
Yeah.
And then they want their children to make the decisions so they can make mistakes and then learn from them. But when you see, in that mindset, I feel like parents, like I said earlier, like it's just a babysitter. It's just something so they can go do something. But when you realize that the impact you're doing, you only have this short amount of time to make a difference in these kids' lives as a parent, and you're going to let this technology do it. And it's just a lazy way of parenting in my mind. But when I see these parents letting their kids be the boss of the hours on the technology and the video games and the separation, we think of these children now, that my kids were right in the middle of the COVID, the separation, this isolation. Then everyone's going all in on their technology because that's all they had, so they had 2 years of, of just looking at a video game or their iPad or phone. And so that right there needs to be addressed from the parental standpoint. They have to realize, yeah, that was then, now we're out of that. And we are progressing into a human world or nature. I mean, I just see this, it's the parents. And it's like I always say, when I watch these kids at any kind of event or any meal, restaurant, whatever, and they are on those phones, and you're in a family environment, there's no value. There's nothing. You're not offering any value. There's no conversation. They don't know how to have a conversation. I guess maybe with AI, you're not going to have to, you're just going to be a robot. Like, what is it,
Yeah, it's an evolution, certainly to a cyborgic state. I talk with a lot of technologists and they describe it as a cyborg and they describe it as a good thing. And for me, it's very odd. Like, I don't feel that way about it. I don't want to be a cyborg in that sense. I want to be connected with nature and I don't mind using technology, but I also want to put it down. I think, being able to have this conversation is a miracle in its own right, but it's also not the only thing I want to do. But I see that there's a tremendous adoption by the younger generations, the children, to actually prefer being in these digitally isolated environments. And for me, it's really concerning. You don't see it down here where I live. There's, especially as soon as you go out of the city and you're in the forest, kids are playing. Kids don't, have phones. And I think to myself that they get to have like what I would think of as like a more natural childhood. But then I also think sadly, they'll never be able to compete. Like
Right.
the world will move on. The whole world's going to move
Exactly.
on, and they're going to be left behind because of it. And there will be other ramifications associated with it as well. And so I try to think of how ultimately can create a balance. But
Right.
my good friends all have kids here in the city, and we're right in the heart of the Amazon. So we're
Hmm.
as, seemingly as isolated as you can be. The city that I live in is the largest, most isolated city in the world.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah, there's over 500,000 inhabitants. So it's a large city. There's 500,000 people here, half a
Hmm.
million plus. And you can only get here by plane or by water. There are no roads that connect
Oh
our
my
city to any
gosh.
other city. Yeah. And so it's a really interesting place because it is so isolated. It has its own culture. It in many ways reflects aspects of American culture from 20 or 30 years ago, maybe even more, like maybe now 30, 40 years ago. And it doesn't evolve culturally like the rest of the world that it's so connected to because of the isolation. But because of video games and because of internet, the kids are digitally addicted and the parents are having all the same problems.
Oh.
So yeah, it's unbelievable here in the city itself. Now you leave the city. So the city, is a couple miles by a couple miles. And then you leave the city right into the forest and it's gone. And so it really is this black and white relationship between where there is internet and where there are cell phones. And people here will spend a vast majority of their money on being able to have cell phones and internet. And it just shows how powerful this technology is and how quickly it can change, the minds of children and, create a dependency upon it.
When I explain to the girls, like in my life, the first half of my life before I had you, I didn't have like the dial phone, I didn't have anything like that. We didn't have phones to call our moms, and they'll panic if they have to go somewhere without their phone. If they, Mom, I don't have my phone. I said, you'll be fine. They had this attachment to where that's their safety, and I understand that's how they were raised. But I said, when we were kids, I always say, I'm so glad I got to experience that freedom
Mm-hmm.
without that, and now I am raising you with the complete opposite of how I was in childhood. But, so we're getting to the place where like the 30-year-olds who are having children, it's all going to be like, that's all they know too. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
we're all kind of the old folks who've had the childhood of non-technology it's getting smaller and smaller, for the children that are coming out these days. But when you realize that, it's, I think our viewpoint, because we didn't have that, is stronger, knowing you don't need that. You can make
Correct.
it, that's
Yeah, I
how.
think everyone lived just fine.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Everyone lived just fine without all of this different kind of digital encroachment.
Right.
And you didn't need it. And when you did need to be able to call somebody, there was always a way.
Right.
And if you needed help, people around you were able to help. It wasn't just the people that you could find on your phone. Literally anybody around you was actually helpful if you needed it.
Right.
And there wasn't such a like paranoia about what was lurking out there. There was
Right.
like, their idea that, yeah, there might be certain dangers out there, but if you know how to navigate the space, well, you can move by them. But it wasn't like the boogeyman was just like everywhere. And,
Right.
oh my God, what could happen if these like what if scenarios? It just wasn't like that. Like I grew up riding my bike from a very young age all over the place. It was completely normal. We were able to
Yeah, me too.
go, yeah, we were able to go anywhere we really needed to. We could take ourselves to school. It was completely normal to do that. And now I see that, it has fundamentally changed. And I appreciate what you mentioned is like the panic of not having the phone
Hmm.
because I'm attached to it too now with work and everything like that. I can feel that way sometimes if I have to leave and I don't have it, and ultimately nothing's going to happen, but it has changed us psychologically in a way that I think
Right.
is really important.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's um, sometimes I look at our family and, if they didn't do their home, they did something that got them in trouble. Well, we're going to take your phone. That's the first thing. Like, it's like the big threat is the phone.
Hmm.
It's not, there's nothing that else would ride that high of the threat. That's the one thing that okay, I can't do that again because I'll get my phone taken away. But yeah, so yeah, we're on to the new now. It's for sure. We're in the new world.
Yeah, and going back to what we started with about the idea of affirmations and mental training and positive mindset, I think that now it makes it even more important because the
For
mindset
sure.
associated with the phones and technology is just not that.
No.
Right. It doesn't reinforce anything ultimately positive. It doesn't reinforce an algorithm that makes you more developed within yourself. And so I think being willing and taking time away to do that mental training is now, I think, probably more important than ever.
Yeah, if anything, the social pressure of me having girls and watching what they look at on Instagram or TikToks um, and the pressure. And I look at that and I think, girls, like that is okay, thinking that is okay for them to put on for the world to see. And in their mind, it is. It's like they like try to tip the scale. Like how can I get that one more like? But it's just like I said earlier, like it's that instant gratification. It's that they don't have um the gratitude. I mean, it's just everything. I feel like when kids can like put that away and not feel that that's they don't need that validation through all that likes or whatever, um, and remove themselves from thinking that they need that, and they can validate themselves through self-love and affirmation, all the mindset tools that I really believe in. Then that just becomes, the back. They don't focus on that. But for the 99.999% of the other kids that do, and it really is it is something that is going to become, like we said earlier, I don't know we don't know where it's going. We don't know what the effects, there's been suicides in the high school over here. And, it just breaks your heart to think, what are they going through? Like, what haven't the parents seen? Why is that what does that word become regular in our vocabulary lately? Like that just doesn't feel right. What are what's going on? What are we seeing in these little minds that are trying to make it in this world or try to keep up with all the pressures that is out there on those?
But I think fundamentally the pressures come from like highly stigmatized social hierarchy and higher
Mm,
construct that they're faced with in a way that you can't get away from.
mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was, in junior high, the littlest things were, or even high school, the littlest things were big issues.
Right.
And now if I have something that's providing me those little things that are big issues all the time, I'm suffering from big issues then literally all the time. And I
Right.
put myself back into that mindset, and I used to try to escape from all of that. So I would just
Mm-hmm.
want to get away and go get into nature. Right. But if you now getting away into nature is getting back into your phone where you just get more of that, I think it
Right.
would be very, very hard. And it's also then hard to relate because there's a hyper culturalization taking place inside the phone amongst the people who know of that
Mm-hmm.
compared to the parents who might be outside of that and don't know what's actually going on inside the minds of the kids associated with it. Like, I honestly have no idea what anyone else is experiencing when they connect to a device. I just know that they're connected.
Right. Yeah, we don't know what's going on in those minds. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I these kids that I talk to and they tell me what goes on at their school, and I don't know um if their parents are aware, but when I hear the stories that goes on, I mean, it's not like we were in middle school and um and I think, okay, where is this coming from? What are they searching for? What are they not getting at home? Why do they have to go outside and get the self-worth or the self-love from? They don't have that. And when you look at this, and I just feel like it's the momentum picks up when they are looking at the Instagram, when they're trying to get their validation from that. It's backfires, because they're not getting the validation because they're not coming with this the self-love and the knowing of who they truly are, and I'm so about like who you are, like, I mean, I know you and I believe like, we are so powerful. We have so much, we live in this body, but we're like so powerful beyond measure. And to look in these little teenager eyes and just tell them like, oh, you're just perfect. You are more, you can have anything. And to inspire them that way instead. And it just lacks it. And it comes to the parents, and it's not their fault. They don't know. They only do what they know, what they know best. But I watch the confidence in these little eyes that they don't know where to turn, and they only do what they have been shown to do or their friends are doing. And there's no direction in the positive light. And my heart's there. That's for sure.
How did you get into teaching kids and supporting them and working with them?
Well, I just, like I said, the earlier was my girls. I had my girls, they have been like in musical theater. They are in pageants, but it's not like beauty pageants. It's been for interview and speaking and confidence. And so we've been with, around families, and they've watched my girls progress, and they know what they speak of when they do a speech. It's usually about mindset or gratitude or some kind of tool that I've taught them. So they're speaking of on these topics. And so when the COVID hit and my podcast went out, that's when it started to come. And that wasn't my intention. In fact, the call in my intuition said, start a podcast. I just said yes, because I know if I hear something, I just say yes. And if it's not the podcast, I know it would have been something else. But my thought was, okay, I'm going to start the podcast. I don't know who's going to come. I don't know whose magic I'm going to uncover, but I know everyone has magic. So I'll just call it Uncover Your Magic, because I'll uncover anyone's magic. But then all of a sudden, all these parents were struggling, and they knew of whatever I had taught my girls. It was first the people that knew me through the pageants or musical theater and softball and, the schools. Can you help? So then all of a sudden I had another inspired thought was, let's create a class that I can teach. So I created 2 classes, one for the kids and one for the parents. And then it just kind of keeps evolving. And then I realized too, like the more I see my girls grow up and see just sitting on a bus with like 40 eighth graders, 14-year-olds for 8 days, 8 days, 4 hotel rooms. It's an eye-opening experience, and it's eye-opening. And I see why sometimes my girls don't resonate a lot with the kids. And it's not that they're better or we're judging the others, but there's definitely a different vibration and a different knowing and a different focus. And so when I see that, and I think that's what parents saw in my kids growing up, that they were doing something, they were being taught something, and they wanted me to help their child. So it was kind of just like, I knew what the important things were. I knew a morning routine was important. I knew gratitude was important. I knew goal setting and vision boards were important. The values, the limiting beliefs, the 4 agreements. So I put it together. I put 8 weeks together and, build it and they will come. And I'm not, if I get to touch 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever it is, it is who comes to me is meant to be. I'm here, and I do the podcast. I think when I see who calls me, like you called me, meaning your soul called me when I listened to you on a podcast. And I just go with that with the podcast. I'm not directing it to parenting. I'm growing with the podcast, but I also am inspired by helping children. So when each episode that comes, I've grown so much by each guest. And I've interviewed a few of my clients, a few of the kids and my girls. And, but I feel like when I instill in these kids this growth mindset and these tools that will empower them for the rest of their life. And to, I've always thought, like, when Paige leaves in a year, she'll go to college, and after, she'll be a senior next year. The worst thing you ever want to do as a parent is to have a regret, and to know that when they leave, that you're questioning if they're going to make it okay, if they can do it on their own, or, oh gosh, she's going to go live in that dorm. Do you think she's going to, all the things? I don't have the confidence, the independence, how she's going to be with boys. I throw her out. I know she's perfectly capable. I don't have one, but that is like, for a parent to have that feeling, that confidence and knowing. I knew I always wanted that feeling, because the feeling that you've done everything and you've given them everything you can, and you don't have that regret is, you can't put a price on that. That's for sure.
That's amazing. It is unbelievably amazing. What does it take for the parents out there, the young parents that might be listening? What does it take on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? How do you do this with children?
You mean with, like, what do I think, what it takes as far as, like,
to instill these beliefs in kids? What does it take to have a child go from so young to now where they would embark on their own life, and that the parent could be, truly confident that the child's going to have every capacity, going forward?
Right. Well, I always, the tools that I believe in so much, like we were talking about, just even waking up in the morning and starting your day with the high vibration, teaching them how important a high vibration is, and being happy and finding your joy, and don't let anyone steal your joy. And just the little small things that, smiling before you get out of bed, saying you're going to have a great day, teaching them the power of, like, we have a reticular activating system game that we play. We've played since they were little, because I want them to understand, like, whatever you're seeking is there. It's all, you just focus, your intention, having an intention in life. That's huge. That's in the morning routine, but you need to have an intention. These kids are floating. They're floaters, because they don't know how to have this. There's no clarity and focus, and knowing what they love and their passions, and knowing that it will change, but to be aware, like, what lights you up. Start having those conversations as a 11-year-old, as an 8-year-old. You're never too young to start talking about what you love. And then that'll just become this muscle where you're like, Mom, I love, like, Presley, for an example. I think when she was like 10, Mom, I love the show, like HGTV show. She loved to watch, like, fixing up houses. She's like, I think I would like to do, like, real estate. Or interior design or something. So in a 3-minute period, we went from, I love looking at those shows, to maybe I want to do real estate, to I'll do interior design and real estate. Wait, Mom, I'm going to have my own HGTV show. Done. 3 minutes. But that's like stimulating their minds to going, oh, it could lead to anything. But no kids do that. I promise you, they're like in awe when I make their vision boards with them, and they're like, I can go to USC. I'm like, you can go anywhere. There's no limits. They have all these blocks because they've been told no, and that's not possible, or you don't have enough money, or, you're not smart enough. There's no limits in life. If you want something and you really focus, and I teach them all that, you can have anything. You're so powerful. We have been taught and indoctrinated to believe that we're so limited and we can't be and do anything in this life. But it's like, wake up. You can have anything. There's no limits. And, the visualization and the feeling, I always talk about the feeling, like with the girls with pageants, when you're parenting these kids, it's like, when they want something, like let's say they want to go to USC, feel it. What does it feel like? What does that person that got into USC feel? What are they doing? What do they eat? What do they do after school? What does it feel like to live? Like, what does that feel like? That feeling is so important. That's when you start to learn how to manifest and see the magic. And then we talk about, we'll lay in bed at night and we'll close our eyes and we'll see that feeling and we get goosebumps and the electric, that we just know that it's coming. We already got it. Like, you go to that pageant, we've already been there on stage. We've already won it. That's in anything in life, soccer games, whatever you're interested in. But gosh, I see these kids with these vision boards that's never had a dream in their life or thought they could dream or talk about their passions, talk about, being clear on, what they want in life and have that clarity and that excitement and that direction. They don't have that. I want to say 99% it's very rare if I find a kid that has some kind of idea of what they love or passionate about because they've never talked about it. They didn't know they could have anything. So yeah, for the advice that I would, back to the question, it's like, gosh, start talking to your kids, put those phones away, get them understanding that they can have anything and there's no limits. Play games with them outside. Look for, make a game and who can find the first hummingbird. And then, go to the place where it's gratitude, open your eyes, be grateful. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't look at life as the victor, not the victim. So my girls, I'm grateful that they see life that way. That's for sure.
If you were going to devise, if a parent came to you and said, I want help, how would you devise a morning schedule for them that would incorporate some of these tools that you're talking about?
So I would say this is my morning routine for my students. They wake up and they smile. And I always explain that the chemicals that when you do smile, even if you aren't happy, you move your mouth to smile. It tells your brain that you're happy. And then you're going to say in your heart, I'm going to have a great day, because that's going to make you look for everything great. You're going to think of something that made you grateful for the day before. So it's something that recently was something amazing that you felt the day before. So you're feeling that. So right now your vibration is raised and you haven't even put your feet on the floor. And then they're going to go to the mirror and they're going to just easily say 3 I am statements, like I am smart, I am healthy, I am kind, and hopefully change those up every day. And then they're going to get their gratitude journal out. And this is what either they do it in the car or they do it sitting having breakfast, and they just write their 5 gratefuls, things that from the day before they were grateful for. They write 1 intention for the day, and they write the 3 people that they're going to give compliments to, and 1 goal. And the goal could be, they have to understand there's an intention versus a goal is different. And some kids don't understand how, you can have a goal of, we talk about 30-day goals and, making action toward that goal every day, even if it's just, writing down something. I mean, it doesn't have to be major, but it's getting them to get in that practice and creating a muscle in their mind. So when they do leave your house, that they have those tools. But school doesn't teach any of that. And I really believe in, in meditating, like stilling your mind, going within, the power within that. The girls have done that for so long. It's just, they know the power, and they know how, when you do quiet your mind and you are in that stillness, everything outside of you is like an illusion, because it's all within. And when we talk about that stuff and we realize, that takes so much pressure. The grades for school, my husband's on a different path, but I don't, if you are struggling on, you have the tools, you can get a tutor, but you're on your journey. There's no wrong or bad. Weren't you the one that your mom and dad said, were you like how you were raised with your grades? Or was that not you?
I don't remember. In my house, we had to get good grades, but
Okay.
but they ultimately but it was presented in a way of mastering what we were supposed to be taught. It wasn't the achievement of the grade itself. In my class, it was about showing up and learning. And the grade was just a way of showing that you had learned. But what was more important was that you actually had learned
Right.
what was being taught. And even more important than learning what was being taught, it was learning how to learn.
Yes.
So they went even deeper to that. It was and then in my high school years, I ended up getting really sick, and I couldn't perform in that semester of school as high as I did all the other times because I was sick for the whole time. And then that was the time when my parents told me that the grades didn't matter.
Okay.
It just mattered how much that you were actually just how much you were really trying, like giving it really your best,
Right.
and showing
Right.
up and trying to do your best. But they allowed us to dream as well. They allowed us to dream. But I could have used this morning routine when I was growing up. And I'm listening to you present it, and I'm thinking like, hey, parents out there, you need this morning routine. like, it's not the kids need it. It's
know,
you
right?
need it. And when you get it, give it to your kids too.
Right.
This
Right.
changes the day.
So
this
much.
changes it. This changes how it gets started.
Oh,
And
I always say to them, be the thermostat, right? Like be the one that sets the temperature. Don't be the one down, that has to crawl up to meet it. Be the one that when you get, this is for everyone. Go to I set my thermostat every morning. I get up at 4:30. I do an extensive morning routine, and I've never missed it. My kids would just be in awe if I was still in bed when they got up. It would be like, what is going on? But I set that for their whole life. They've seen that. I've never, in the morning, that vibration and that thermostat is the highest it can possibly be. When they come down to have breakfast, it would be so weird if they were like, oh, I'm tired. They can't, because the thermostat's so set on high. I've set it. And that's what they realize. Like, we can get in the car when they're little, and if they were, fighting in the back seat, I'd say, okay, where's your where's your vibration? If you start low, it's going to take a lot of, or you're going to attract, how when you're low vibration, you're going to attract the lower stuff. You got to work on getting high. So they understand, start the day here. People are going to go, what have you done? I want to be where you're at. And the ones that aren't will just kind of, they won't be in your space. They won't be able to maintain that vibration if they have their little mind thinking negative or, victim. They're down here. They won't match you. And it's another way of explaining friendships. So-and-so is not nice to me. Honey, you're different vibrations. It's a different energy. There's no connection. You can't make that. You can't force that. And so then they're like, okay, and then we don't connect, Mom. We don't have the same energy frequency or whatever our vocabulary is in the car. But yeah, I just, I think with that morning routine right there, if a family, when I've had families that have done this class together, they'll say, or that hadn't had the parents do it yet, but the kids are doing it. They're like, whatever you're doing in Ashley's class changes our entire family's morning. Because, one person, one person can change the energy of the whole planet. That's why it's like when I see these kids, like, your mom and dad notice a difference in how you're starting your day and how their day is going now because you started it at this stage. They want to raise to that level of all that, that you've done, and then watch the magic in your day come. It's endless, that you're finding magic moments every step. I walk my dogs every morning. You know how many magic moments I see? And I come home and I'm like, oh, girls, I got to tell you my magic moment. And then they're telling me their magic moments. And it's just like, that's what our dinner conversation is about. It's like, oh, and because that's, if we realize this gift of life that we have been given, and that we can, you can grow in love and gratitude and in awe of this life that you get. I say to the girls, can you imagine? You don't have to think about your heart beating, your digestion. You don't have to think of anything. Your fingernails growing, it all works. Is that a miracle? You're a miracle. And they're always like, Mom, we're a miracle, but it's like that. Oh, those kids need to see that they are a miracle.
Mm.
they're like this little miracle that I watch and now get to set free and see them create their own families. In fact, Richard, on his Mother's Day card, for the first time, it was a new sentence. It said, I get so, sad that we're coming to the end of childhood, but it'll be so fun to see these girls and what they took from you being their mom, like what they will implement, like will they do their morning routine with their kids? And, it'll be cute to see how they take that, I mean, I just pray to God that it's just it keeps we keep the momentum going, and hopefully they can spread that with their, they have a platform that they teach kids. They have a podcast on YouTube that they teach little like 3-minute gratitude. They do vision board parties. They go to the Boys and Girls Club and help with these kids with gratitude journals. And they kind of similar to what they had to come up with a platform for their pageant. So, being leaders out there, demonstrating that, this is cool. These are cool things. These are things that help you in life. And they're out there in the world. And I hope that, what I've taught them and what they see, as a, what they can, like at the COVID, they were saying, Mom, these are the best days. These are, because they know everything's for me. Nothing's ever to me. They know everything in life is for them. And it's like, I always say, it's always perfect, but it is always perfect. And that was part of Presley's speech when she read it to me this morning. She said, I want to thank my mom. She's always taught me it's always perfect and everything's happening for me. And it was so sweet to hear that. It was so cute.
It's amazing. I'm inspired. I'm going to add some of these things to my morning ritual. Yeah, absolutely.
What is yours? You have a really good morning routine.
I have a lot of morning routines. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of lots of spirituality in bite-sized pieces because we have so much going on. Right. And so my morning routine is all about starting connected. And depending on what's going on in my life at that time is dependent upon how deep I'll go. So like if it's harder a period of time, because there's this ebb and flow to life that, in the perfection, we have to show up to life. And there are moments that are hard to fully embrace. And so in that, I go really deep at that time. So if it's like that, I'll start very early in the morning. Like you, before I get out of bed, and I like to connect with divinity. I like to connect to source. Source is the starting point. And I use affirmation statements for that and mental focus, like turning my head away from dream and turning my mind away from whatever I could be thinking about. And I put it right on the all of everything that's in, through, and all around us. And I connect to that because I know that that's why we exist. And that's a fundamental miracle. That is the source of the miracle that you describe. And I believe in deeper than anything, that we are miracles, and we have been indoctrinated to not see it that way. And we have to awaken to the miraculousness of everything. There is nothing mundane. Everything is miraculous. And we've been misguided in understanding that. And we've bifurcated that, we've separated that, and we need to come back to a holistic understanding of the miraculous in everything, and then start to make the choices like you're describing that become now truly positive.
Right.
And otherwise we use the miracle to create a kind of, negative. It becomes a pain point or a kind of suffering that we create that we don't need to anymore. So I go deep into that. I go deep into divinity. I go deep into affirmation statements. And then I'm very connected with nature. And so I connect with the nature of water, which we call spirit. So then I'll go, when I take a shower in the morning, I'll connect with that. It's not just bathing my body like as a task. Water is miraculous, and I'm made of 60, 70, 75% water. So I connect with that in a very deep way. And then I focus on everything that can, like, I believe in incremental steps of success. So I focus on all the incremental steps that are all growing successfully. And then I think about the things that need more input. And I find within myself, like the willingness to do them, like tending a garden. It's a willingness. It's not like, oh, I have to go weed. It's I'm going and I'm tending this garden of all the activities that I have. And some I like more than others, and some I'm better at than others. So I look at the ones that I, find more challenging, and I think about how I can give to myself to do those better. And that becomes the totality of my morning routine. And then the day starts, and then I try to carry it forward. But I really believe in this idea of continuous connection, continuous miracle, continuous expansion of our consciousness and embracing of life. And this idea that we can create the incremental steps to our success. So it's something that we can do truly little by little by little by little by little by little. And when we look at that and we encourage that in others, and we do it together as a team, whether it's a family team or a couple team or a business team, a company team, and we're all working together, that it's the millions upon millions upon millions of little things that add up to those big things that we can notice. And so I feel that way about spirit too, that it's the consistency and spirituality and connection. It's the consistency of it that is omnipresent. So I think it's always present, and it's whether we're tapping into it. We're always using it, but we can use it to play games of separation, or we can get shut down. Like you're saying, the kids who don't know how to dream to their success, so it's our responsibility to open that. And so that's my morning routine. And I let it change, because I'm not as good as doing the same thing every day the same way. Mm-hmm. Like I fatigue in that, and I know that about myself, but I know others are really good at that. So for the others that do that really well, I tell them to do that. Like if they can align the clock to align that thing to happen at that time, and they get it all worked out, and they do this for 5 minutes and that for 10 minutes, I tell them, do it that way. But for me, it works better if it's a little bit different every day. And I let it be that way, so that it's always creative, and I can always reflect on what's happening in real time in the moment. But it is every day, and it's been this way for 20 years. It's been since I first got introduced to spirituality and to the books that you were describing, the Course in Miracles and the Four Agreements. Those were all very early friends, or early reads and early friends and early teachings that were incredibly important in my development. And then from that time, the moment I realized that we didn't have to wait for spirit, that spirit was always everywhere, and that it was us to show up, then that was my favorite thing in the world, was to show up that way. And so that then became a morning routine, which became then a daily routine, which became a night routine, which became a 24-hour-a-day routine. Because I think that I felt like there had to be something more to life. Mm-hmm. There had to be. And I agree with you. Like you said, there has to be something more. All those other things that were described, like the family and a house and work and stuff, those are accoutrements to me of life. Those add to it. But life itself is the miracle. Right. Like the fact that we get to exist is the miracle. And with existence, we get to do all of these other things. And so when I finally had that oriented correctly in my mind, which took me the first, early 20 years, I didn't have that orientation helping me. I wish I had that daily routine when I was in, fourth grade and fifth grade and sixth grade.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
That's what really propels my, me to do, that passion in me I think it's so important. If I had that then, like I was so lost, floating around. And I know that's why I look at it from the higher perspective of, why I had the life I did and what ignites in me now because of that. Like it was all a gift. It was all perfect. And then to instill the importance, I feel like if I knew as a 14-year-old how important it was to do that morning routine or whatever it is, all the things that I know that's what fuels that, is me not having that, me realizing, gosh, I didn't have any direction. I didn't have any intention. I didn't know what I wanted to be. all those things fuel my, my passion for these kids, because I know how important that is.
That's so beautiful. Ashley, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast with me. And I want to give you an opportunity to let everybody know how to find you, how to participate in these classes if they can. How do people get in touch with you?
Yes, my website is just my name, ashleygonor.com. And my podcast is Uncover Your Magic. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and it's all under Ashley Gonor, Gonor. And you can always email me at ashleygonor@gmail.com. And if you have teenagers or families that struggle with all the things that Hamilton and I were talking about or want direction, I would love that. I mean, nothing excites me more than seeing these kids light up and seeing their eyes see hope for their future and get excited to be on this planet like we are.
It's amazing. Ashley, you're an inspiration, and thank you for embodying the teachings and bringing them not only to your own children, but other people's children. And thank you for sharing your light with the world. It's an honor to get to talk to you. And thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Oh, thank you, Hamilton. So nice to see you. I love it.